So machine learning and deep learning actually are the subfields of artificial intelligence. So at the top, as an umbrella term, we have the AI. Inside the AI, we have the machine learning, and inside the machine learning, we have the deep learning. So previously, I mean, we developed AI-based systems. Now we have a machine learning-based systems. Now we have the deep learning-based systems. And if you just talk about the AI, in AI actually, we our job is to develop the intelligent tasks or intelligent softwares or intelligent applications. I mean, these applications can see, can perceive something, can make the decisions, and so on and so forth. And as I mentioned, the machine learning or the deep learning are the subfields of the AI. So at the top we have the AI, inside the AI we have the machine learning, and inside the machine learning we have the deep learning. So in this background, in the first agenda, we will see what is machine learning and what is the deep learning and what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning. We will see the pipeline or the process through which you conduct the research in machine learning or deep learning, so that we have an idea, when we talk about conducting the research in the field of either machine learning or deep learning. So, there are some programs which are very difficult to code. I mean, for example, if you want to write a software which can, automatically detect whether the incoming email is spam or ham. I mean, you cannot write so many if and else. So you have to write many if and else. So for example, if this word occurs, and if this word occurs, and if this word occurs, so classify the email as a ham or classify the email as spam. So you have to write millions of perhaps the if else conditions or rule-based rules to classify an email as a ham or spam. So this type of program is very difficult to write in conventional programming language. Okay. Or for example, if you want to detect the face, if you want to recognize the face, so I mean, what type of conditions you will employ in the face recognition. So in such type of programs, I mean, these type of programs are extremely difficult to program by hand in conventional programming languages. So for these type of programs, actually we employ the machine learning or deep learning tasks or approaches. So as I mentioned, the machine learning is the subfield of the artificial intelligence, and in the machine learning actually is to give the computers the ability to learn from without being explicitly programmed. So what do you mean by this definition? When you type these type of programs like spam filtering or face recognition, so for in machine learning, you're not supposed to write millions of lines. So you have to employ the algorithms, machine learning algorithms, which will learn from the past data to recognize the face or to recognize the email as ham or spam. Another definition of machine learning is a computer program is said to learn from experience E with respect to task T and some performance measure P. If its performance on T is measured by P, improve the experience E. So what do you mean by this definition? So in this definition, if you see, we have certain terms like experience, like task, like performance metric. Okay. So what do you mean by these terms? Let's see. So when we talk about the experience means the past data. So for example, if you want to write a software to recognize a face, so you need to provide the faces of the persons. Okay. So if you want to, for example, classify the email, so you need to provide the past emails, which are ham or spam in nature. So this is what the experience is, the past data. Then we have some task. Okay, so what do you want to perform on this past data? So what is your task? So for example, my task is to recognize a face, or my task is to classify an email. So this is my task T. And what do you mean by the performance P? P means how you will measure whether your task has been achieved or not, or significantly your task have been achieved or not. So for example, if I wrote a program for classifying an email, so perhaps the accuracy of my program is 50%. So I mean, I need some metric, or I need some measure to measure the performance of my classifier. So that is called P. Okay. So if you reread this definition, a computer program is set to learn from experience E. So it learns from the past data for some task T, and we measure the performance based on the P. So this the measurement may be the accuracy, F score, area under the curve, and so on and so forth. Okay, so by and large, if you talk about the machine learning, so machine learning is nothing actually, it is the mapping of some function based on some input to output. So you have the input data, for instance, and you have the output data. So you need some mathematical function or mapping function which learns the predictions or forecasting or classification based on the input perhaps or output. Okay, so for example, if I want to classify an email, so for me, the input is an email and the output is maybe whether the email is spam or no spam. Okay, so for example, for another task, maybe my input is a face image and the output is to recognize the face image. Okay, so and so on and so forth. So there are so many tasks we will learn through these workshops. Okay, so I mean, how this now mapping is done? Okay, how this learning actually is done? So the learning can be occurred through two possible ways. Number one is the supervised way and the number two is the unsupervised way. In supervised learning, we have in the past data, we have the input and output. However, in the unsupervised data, we just have the input. Okay, so if you differentiate between the supervised learning and unsupervised learning, so supervised learning actually learns from the past data which contains the input data and also the output of the data. While unsupervised is just learned from the input data. Okay, so to summarize, by and large, there are majorly two types of the machine learning. One is called the supervised machine learning, another one is called the unsupervised machine learning. In supervised machine learning, as I mentioned, the algorithms learn from the input and output. However, in unsupervised, the algorithm take the patterns from just the input, not the output variable. So further, if you classify in supervised machine learning, we have two subtypes. Number one is called the regression and number two is called the classification. Okay, so in regression, our task is to predict the continuous value. So for example, if you want to predict what will be the dollar price tomorrow, okay, what will be the dollar price after 1 month. So this is your regression task where you want to figure out or predict the continuous value. Okay, for example, what will be my next CGPA next semester? Okay, so this may be the continuous value, and for that you need to use the regression task. So regression is used to predict the continuous values. Okay, maybe for example, how much Afridi will make score in tomorrow's game. Okay, so again, this is the regression task. In classification, you need to predict the nominal value. Okay, and you need to predict the categorical value. For instance, who will win the match tomorrow, whether the Pakistan or India? Okay, so is the email ham or spam? Again, this is the classification task where you need to classify an incoming email or incoming data in predefined classes. Okay, so this type of task is called the classification task. And in unsupervised, we have one type of unsupervised algorithms which is called, for example, clustering, where you have just the input data and you do not have the output data. And from the input data, you make the clusters. Okay, you make the clusters based on the similar type of data. In clustering, your job is to cluster the homogeneous data. Okay, so for example, if you have millions of rows and if you want to just group the similar type of rows, for example, if you have millions of documents and you want to classify, okay, classify the, or if you want to cluster the similar documents, so for example, cluster the documents which belong to science category, cluster the documents which belongs to X category and Y category and Z category, and so on and so forth. So the basic difference between the classification, regression and clustering is, in regression and classification, you have the past data which contains the input variable and output variable. However, in the unsupervised and clustering, you just have the input variables and you do not have the output categories or output variables. So this is the basic difference between the supervised machine learning algorithms and unsupervised machine learning algorithms. I mean, if you want to conduct the research, so you have to decide whether you want to conduct the research in unsupervised machine learning algorithms or supervised machine learning algorithms. What is your task actually? Okay, so when you develop a model, for example, using supervised or unsupervised machine learning algorithms, so you have to make sure your model is generalized model. I mean, when you provide the past data, your model learns from the past data. Then after the learning, you need to test your model on the new data. I mean, it should be generalized. So for example, if you want to classify email classifier, and for email classifier you provided 1000 ham email and 1000 spam email, and classifier learns from the past data. Now your task is to test your model. Now your model learned from the past data. Now how it will behave on the new data. So for example, you have to provide your model, you have your constructed model, a new data, I mean, which was not seen before by the model, and you have to see whether your model is performing well on the new data or not. I mean, whether it is recognizing the new email as ham or spam correctly or not. If your model is performing well on the learning side, I mean from the past data, it learns and it shows a learning accuracy, for example 90%, but it shows a testing accuracy, for example 40%, it means your model is not good. Your model is overfitted. It is performing well on the seen data, but it is not performing well on the unseen data. So this type of model is called the overfitted model. So you have to make sure your model is not the overfitted model. Other models are called the underfitted model. What do you mean by the underfitted model? In learning, also the accuracy is bad. In testing, also the accuracy is bad. So this type of model is called the underfitted model. So in as a machine learning engineer or as a machine learning scientist, your job is to have a model which shows the best accuracy, good accuracy in the learning side and good accuracy in the testing side also. So your model should be just right. It should not be overfitted model. It should not be the underfitted model. So there are a lot of supervised machine learning algorithms such as the linear regression. So in regression, we normally employ the linear regression. In classification, we employ the, for example, logistic regression, decision trees, naive Bayes, k-nearest neighbors, support vector machines, artificial neural networks, bagging and boosting algorithms, including the random forest, which is the bagging algorithm, and AdaBoost, which is the boosting algorithm. You can also employ the ensembling model, which is a combination of multiple algorithms. For example, you can make an ensemble of probably the logistic, decision, and naive Bayes. So you combine together and you can make an, okay. And if you have classification tasks such as, for example, to predict who will win the match, Pakistan or India, and so on and so forth. So that in unsupervised machine learning algorithms, we have k-means and c-means algorithms. So in unsupervised, as I mentioned, we have clustering algorithms, and in clustering we have the k-means algorithm and c-means algorithm. So these are used to form a clusters from the input data. So in these type of algorithms, your algorithm do not need a data which has input as well as the output. So your data just have the input variables, not the output variables. So based on the input variables, it automatically form a clusters, homogeneous clusters, which contains the homogeneous data. Okay. So there are a lot of applications of machine learning. So for example, you can employ the machine learning in natural language processing. So for example, as I mentioned, you can classify an email as ham or spam. Even you can employ the machine learning algorithms to recognize the images, to classify the images, to process the images. So you can employ the machine learning for video classification, for example, maybe to classify a violent video or no violent video. Even though you can you can use the machine learning in audio processing or audio classification. So in machine learning, you can have in any data, for example, NLP or image processing data or video processing data or audio data, and you can classify using machine learning or deep learning. So if you talk about the process of machine learning, so in machine learning, you have the input data, or you have the data. You must have the data first of all, which is called the past data. If you remember the definition I mentioned, so you must have the P. Then you need to employ the training. Okay, on the past data, you employ the learning process. So here you employ any machine learning algorithm such as the support vector machine or linear regression or maybe logistic regression, which can learn the rules from the past data and develop a model. And now you can develop this model to serve the predictions, to predict the future data. Okay, so for example, once you have the model, so this model can be served as a magic box. So you can provide a new data to the model and it can classify the new data or unseen data and make the predictions or classifications. So this is the high level pipeline of the machine learning. If you go in depth, so this pipeline can further divide it into 7 steps. Number 1 is the data collection. So this is the newer version of the previous diagram. So first you collect the data. So actually then you pre-process the data. So your data may contain the irrelevant features or irrelevant input variables. So you may want to get rid of those irrelevant variables. So you employ some pre-processing techniques to remove the irrelevant or noisy data from your data set. Once you remove the noisy data from your data set, now your job is to make the features, to construct the features, to engineer the feature, to create the master feature vector using a process called feature engineering. So this is the very crucial step in machine learning. Okay, so you need to spend enormous time in forming the very good features. Once you form the features, you will provide these features to the machine learning algorithms such as the support vector machine or random forest or AdaBoost and so on and so forth. So that algorithm will learn from these features and feature values, and in the end it will give you a model. Once it gives you a model, you can employ the model testing by providing the unseen data. So now you will provide an unseen data to this model to test the performance of your learned model, whether it is performing well or not. Okay, so here if you see this blue box, here you have the model. The output of this blue box is the model, actually the classification model, and here in the green box you have to test that model on unseen data. Okay, so for example, you can measure the performance here during the learning process and you can measure the performance here during the testing process. Okay, if in both these steps, if your model gives a good accuracy, it means your model is neither overfitted or not underfitted. But if your model gives a very good accuracy on training phase but very bad accuracy on testing phase, meaning what? Your model is the overfitted model. Or if your model is giving the bad accuracy on training phase and bad accuracy on testing phase, it means your model is the underfitted model. So your model should give a better accuracy on training phase, also on testing phase. Once you have a right model which shows the very good accuracy on training phase as well as the testing phase, then you can deploy that model in your real systems, maybe for example your mobile application or your system, and then make the future inferences. Okay, so this is the complete detailed pipeline of the machine learning applications. Okay, as I mentioned in this diagram, the important phase is the feature engineering. So machine learning models or machine learning algorithms, as I mentioned, can perform on natural language processing, natural language text or audio files or video files or image files. So these algorithms are generic algorithms. They can work on any type of data. However, these algorithms requires a very good features. If you provide the very good features, I mean the discriminative features to these algorithms then can perform very well and give you a good accuracy. If your feature engineering phase is very weak, I mean if you do not provide a good feature to the algorithms, it may not perform well. Okay, so for example, if you want to classify an email into ham or spam, and for that if you provide a good features to your machine learning algorithm such as the naive Bayes algorithm or random forest, then it can give you the good accuracy, else it cannot give you the good accuracy. So the performance of machine learning algorithms actually depend upon the input features. If you provide the good features, they can show the good accuracy, else not. Features are nothing, actually these are the input variables. Okay, so if you talk about the feature, in feature engineering, we perform these four tasks. I mean, feature extraction, feature representation, feature selection, or feature reduction. Okay, in feature extraction, so what do you mean by the feature extraction? So you can, if I talk about the email classification, so you can take the good word representatives for an email. So you are extracting the very good features from ham category, also from the spam category. So for example, you extracted 100 words, w1, w2, dot 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 up to w100. So you extracted the very good features from the ham and spam categories, and each word will represent as a feature. And you remove, for example, those features which are very very common. For example, is, the, a, n, and so on and so forth. Now you want to represent the values of those features. So how you will represent the values? For example, you extracted a feature w1. So now what will be the value of w1 for first email? Maybe the w1 is present in first email or not. I mean, this is called the binary representation, which is called 0 and 1, and so on and so forth. So this is called the feature representation. The third is feature selection. So sometime when you employ the features, you have the huge number of features. I mean, for example, 1000 features. I mean, 1000 columns. So these 1000 columns may be too many for a particular machine learning algorithm. So it may slow down your learning process. So, and sometimes it may include the discriminative features, also some non-discriminative features. So for those, you employ the feature selection algorithms such as chi-square or PCA and so on and so forth. Not PCA, sorry, chi-square or information gain or Gini index. Okay. So this is called the feature selection. In feature selection, you have the superset of features, for example, F1 to F100. And if you want to see what are the best features, top 10 features, which can give me a good accuracy on my classification task. Okay, so this is called the feature selection. In feature reduction, so normally if you see, we have 2D graphs, or maybe we have a 3D graph. So you cannot, put every value on a 3D or 2D graph. So for example, if you have 10 features and you want to depict those features values on a 3D graph, so 3D graph cannot show all these 10 features. So maybe sometime you want to transform those 10 features into just 2 features. For that, you need to employ the feature reduction schemes, such as the principal component analysis and so on and so forth. Okay. So feature engineering actually is a umbrella term which is further subdivided into these 4 concepts: feature extraction, feature representation, feature selection, and feature reduction. Okay, let's understand this with the help of some example. Okay, so for example, you have 3 types of iris flowers. Okay, so this is at the left hand side, I have a Setosa iris flower. In the middle, I have versicolor iris flower, and in the right, I have the Virginica iris flower. Okay, so I want to make an application, machine learning application, which automatically classify whether the flower is the Setosa or versicolor or Virginica. Okay, so now your job is, I mean, if you recall the pipeline, 7 steps, if you recall, number 1 is to collect the data. So you need to collect the different pictures of these 3 type of flowers. Maybe, for example, the 50 pictures belong to Setosa, the 50 pictures you collected for the versicolors, and the 50 pictures you collected for the Virginica. Okay, and now from these pictures, you have to remove the irrelevant, or you have to pre-process the picture. Okay, you have to employ the pre-processing step. So for example, if I see all these 3 pictures, at the background I have a noise, so I have to remove these noise, and I just need to get a picture of these flowers, and at the back end, the green color branches or stems, I need to remove those things from my pictures. So this is called the pre-processing step. Then I want to employ the feature engineering phase. In feature engineering phase, for example, I need to use my scientific knowledge regarding the iris flower. So what type of features may be more useful for the classification task? So for example, here we see we will use the petal and sepal features to classify the data. Maybe for example, if this is the petal, so what is the width of the petal and what is the length of the petal in setosa? Similarly, what is the width of the sepal and what is the length of the sepal in setosa? Similarly, what is the width of the petal and what is the length of the petal in versicolor? Similarly, what is the width and length of the sepal in versicolor, and so on and so forth. So I use these features, for example, sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. So I chose these four, features to classify the flower into these three categories: setosa, versicolor, and virginica. So you see, in this type of data, I have the input values now, which is sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. I also have the output class or class variable, which is species. So for example, this is the first flower. This is the first flower value, flower number 1. The sepal length is 5.1. The sepal length is, for example, 3.5. The petal sepal width is 1.4, and the petal length is, for example, 0.2, and the category is setosa. So I have these 4 input values or features and 1 output variable. So if you recall, now in this data set I have input variables, also I have the output variable. So for this task I will employ the supervised machine learning, okay, not unsupervised, because in my data set I have input values, I have also the output values. Then in supervised machine learning, whether I will employ the regression or classification, what? So of course I will employ the classification, because I have 3 distinct categories. I have to classify whether the flower is setosa, versicolor, or virginica. So for this type of task I will employ the classification. I will not employ the regression, because in regression I need to predict the continuous value. So here I am not predicting the continuous value, I am predicting the nominal value. So I will employ the classification algorithms such as the support vector machine, naive Bayes, and so on and so forth, decision trees. Okay, so let's see one example in Python. So in Python, if you want to employ, or if you want to employ the machine learning, so you need to have some libraries such as the pandas, sklearn, and some sub libraries of the sklearn. So pandas libraries is used to read the CSV file into the memory. So if you, I'm now using all those 5-7 steps in Python program. So step number 1 is to collect the data and to load the data. So I'm loading here the data. For example, I'm reading the CSV file which is available on my computer. For example, let me show you the data. So for example, this is the iris data which I have. Okay, so I have this iris data here. If I can show you this iris data in my notepad. Okay, so if you see this data, I have this data. Overall, I have 150 instances. So I have I have 4 features: sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. And then I have a class variable, which is this class variable, which contains 3 output, either setosa or versicolor or virginica. And from here I have the data. So this is the data for flower number 1 picture. This is the data for flower number 2, and so on, for 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I have this data set. I have collected this data set from the Kaggle website. So in this data set I have 50 instances of setosa, 50 instances of versicolor, and 50 instances of the virginica. Okay, so I'm loading this data in Python using this command. For example, pd.readcs. pd is nothing, actually it is the alias of the pandas. So I'm reading the data and loading the data through the pandas library. So I'm reading this iris data. Then in the next step I am performing the pre-processing. So for example, in my data set I have the ID column. So ID is nothing to deal with the classification task, so I need to remove this ID column. So this is one type of the pre-processing. Another type of pre-processing is, for example, if you have the missing values, you have to get rid of the missing values, or you have to manage the missing values. So this is another type of pre-processing. Then the third step is the feature engineering. Okay, so I mean I showed you I have 4 features and 1 output variable. So whether I want to employ all these 4 features in my classification task or less than 4 features, so it's up to me. So for example, here I'm using all the 4 features as a feature and putting those 4 features in X variable, and the last, which is after the 4, which is I have a class variable, which is I'm storing in a Y variable. Okay, so now the sepal length, sepal width, petal length and petal width, all these 4 features with the values are stored in X, and last, which is the class variable or a special variable, is stored in a Y variable. Next, because I have already told you, you have to employ 2 steps, learning and testing. So I need to, from this 150 data set, I need to use, for example, 80% data for training and 20% I will use for testing. Okay, so I will employ this 20% data in testing, the rest of the 80% I will use in training. Okay, so here I am using a classifier called the decision tree classifier. For example, I am using the decision tree classifier. So as I mentioned, in classification we have decision tree, we have naive Bayes, we have support vector machine. So if you want to, for example, employ support vector machine, so you have to write here the support vector machine instead of the decision tree. So here this is the change of just 1 line. Okay, so what type of algorithm you want to employ? Decision tree, random forest, or support vector machine, neural network, or which one? So the last line is for the training purpose or learning purpose. I am saying, okay, based on this algorithm, now you have to learn the classification rules using the training data. It's 80% data. Okay, not on 20% data. So last 20% I will use, which is stored in X validation. I am using that for predicting. Now I didn't use these 20% in my learning phase. I'm using this 20% for predictions, for testing. Okay, after the testing I want to see what is now the accuracy and what is the confusion metric, what is the precision recall, and I'm printing some p. If you recall the definition, I'm printing some p, and this is the outcome. For example, so if I run this program in Python, it will show me the 90% accuracy, and it will show me the average precision 91% and average recall 91%, average F score 91%. So if you see, this model not only gives me a good accuracy on a testing, or also gives me a good accuracy on training. So this is a right model for me. I mean, I now should use this model in my mobile application for future predictions, or maybe in my web system for future predictions. Okay, so this is whole the process of machine learning.